This is a story about Sophia and her husband, a couple who had been married for 4 years and were without kids. Her husband worked hard at his job and helped out with the chores at home, but he was very vain, so they ran into huge problems. How will they face those problems? I won't accept living anywhere other than a high-rise in the city. If you want to live in a rundown house in the countryside, let's divorce. Fine then, let's divorce. The tale of a husband whose income was only $500 a month. I'm 30 years old and I've been married for 4 years now. My husband Jack is the same age as me and we don't have kids yet. 2 years ago, I opened a nail salon and business has been going well. Studying business management was hard and it was really rough keeping the business afloat until I got more clients. But I'm happy to be running the business of my dreams. My husband works for a very exploitative company, and his net income is only $500 a month. Since we obviously can't survive on a salary alone, we combined our income and rent out an apartment for $440 a month. He actually likes his job. Apart from the salary, he doesn't have any complaints. So he says that since we combine our incomes, he doesn't plan on changing jobs. Even if we do share our expenses to a degree, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say I pay for pretty much everything. He helps out with the chores at home, so I try to overlook his salary, but my husband has a certain personality issue. He's vain. I do all the housework a wife usually does. You can say I'm a real family man. My wife often compliments me and tells me how big of a help I am, and that keeps me motivated. Jack would often pretend he cared about our family at work to show off. That's wonderful how family-oriented you are. My husband should learn a thing or two from you, is what the female employees at his job would tell him. That in itself is fine, but there was something else that he's been repeating ever since we first got married, which is that he dreams of us living in one of the luxury apartment buildings across from the station. Of course, that's impossible with our current income. In the future, I really want to live in one of the high-rises across from the station. They're so chic and cool. I want to live in a top-floor condo as soon as possible. He always talked about it. When finally I asked him why he wants to live there, he said, Huh? Well, it's cool, isn't it? Living in a high-rise? The vibe of the people who live in the upper floors of those buildings is completely different. Being able to look out your window and see the whole city stretch out below you, don't you want to live somewhere like that too? His reasons were so childish. He only wanted to live on the upper floors, and it had to be the buildings in front of the station. I can't even imagine what your salary has to be to afford that. And as I said earlier, he only makes $500 a month. With that sort of salary, living in a building like that is nothing but a distant dream. Sophia, don't you think living in a building like that is amazing? They're building a new high-rise in front of the station now. When they finish it, I want to go to a house viewing. Yeah, well, that's fine. His income was small, and I definitely thought living in a single home was better than in a huge apartment building. So I just listened and nodded along. I was sure that Jack understood the reality of our financial situation, so I wasn't all that worried. If he wants to live somewhere like that, he should find a new job with a higher salary. But he had no desire to look for a new job. Even if we both worked, most of our financial responsibility was on me. Since he was very self-centered, Jack thought that even if he contributed a little, it was more than enough. Surprisingly, my husband was more serious about wanting to live in that high-rise than I expected. One day, on his way home from work, he reserved an apartment for a free house viewing at the apartment building he had mentioned. I managed to get a reservation for a house viewing. They have a model apartment near the construction site, which they'll let us check out. Finally, I'll be the owner of one of those apartments. The viewing will be on Saturday, so keep your schedule open. You have Saturday off, right? My husband believed that I also wanted to live there, so he happily told me about the apartment viewing he had scheduled. Yeah, I have the day off Saturday, so I think I can come. I really didn't want to, but feeling pressured by my husband, who was incredibly happy, I agreed to go. Going to see the apartment doesn't necessarily mean buying it, so I thought it wouldn't hurt to check it out. Saturday came, and we went to visit the model apartment. The apartment was spacious and pretty. Jack was incredibly happy as he looked around the rooms. This room is extra spacious, so I'd like it to be our bedroom. But on the other hand, it could be a nursery when we have kids. The living room is also large, and look at the view from the window. The model window just had a picture of the scenery expected to be seen from the apartment, but Jack still seemed very satisfied. The kitchen has an island countertop, just like you wanted. What do you think about the place? Yeah, I've always wanted a kitchen with an island. The apartment is near the station, which is very convenient. But living in a tall apartment like this means wasting time in an elevator, and you'll get annoyed by noise from your neighbors, so I'd rather live in a single home. I wanted to continue speaking, but he let what I said go in one ear and out the other. Not considering my feelings, he continued to try to force the apartment on me. Right? We should really live here. The interior is perfect. Let's sign the lease quickly. After just seeing the model apartment, he already wanted to sign a lease. Wait, the lease? We never said we'd buy this place. What? Didn't you say it was convenient? I want us to live here. And wouldn't it be so cool living in this kind of building? Are you saying you aren't interested in a place this nice? This is a nice apartment, but where do you plan on getting the money for this? Your income is only $500 a month. How do you plan on paying for this? We're just looking around the model room today. Signing a lease is unrealistic. When I said aloud that Jack's salary was only $500, the staff who were showing us around froze. Wanting to live in an upper floor of the building with that salary, I felt like the staff must be laughing at us internally, so I felt embarrassed and pulled my husband into another room. Come on, we looked around, so let's go home. You should think about it more before deciding to buy a place like this. No, why do I have to go home? I will live here. If I don't sign the lease now, someone else might take the apartment before me. You can worry about that later. We aren't living in a financial position to afford living here. We don't have enough money to buy this apartment. How many years do you think it'll take to pay this off with your current salary? If we don't have enough money, we can get a loan or something. I want to live here no matter what. I tried dragging my husband home with me, but he threw a tantrum like a small child. Questioning his sanity, I was desperate to stop him from signing the lease. We fought until a staff member intervened. In the end, we went home without signing anything. If you didn't stop me, I would have been able to live there. Why won't you understand me? I'll say this as many times as I have to, but you don't have enough money to buy that apartment. So please, give up on that idea for now. Jack continued to complain about me not letting him sign the lease the entire car ride home. He wouldn't give up. We have to live there. Why aren't you into buying it? Jack brought up the apartment again the next day. Even if we don't have enough money now, we can take out a loan which we'll both pay off. There's no need to worry about money. Since visiting the model room, he decided he had to live in that apartment no matter what. We talked about this when we were there, right? In our financial situation, it's unrealistic to consider buying that apartment. Your salary is only $500, and our current apartment's rent is $440. I'm the one who pays most of the rent and the utilities. So how do you expect to pay for that apartment? My salary might not be enough, but you can cover the rest, right? Just like we're doing now. He wanted to get me to pay for everything. You have more clients at the salon these days, and haven't you said that your income has increased? You can buy an apartment with that money, right? I don't really care about living there, and I definitely don't want to use up my entire salary on that apartment. Isn't it weird for me to buy the apartment while you don't pay a single penny? I never said I wouldn't pay a single penny. I will help out a bit. You don't have the salary to afford to help me. If you don't plan on finding a way to increase your salary, I won't pay for us to move into a new apartment. I clearly said I wouldn't be buying the apartment, but Jack wouldn't get it. So you should just help pay. It won't be possible for me to find a new job now. I like my job, and apart from the salary, I have no problems there. Then give up on living in that apartment. I'm perfectly fine with living as we do now. I don't care all that much about living in that apartment, and anyway, I'd rather live in a single home. We should be able to purchase a home outside of the city without much of an issue.
If you pay, we can live there. I keep telling you, so why won't you understand?
Jack didn't want to look for a new job, but he wouldn't give up on living at that apartment either. I was getting tired of how he expected me to take care of him financially. If you want to live there so badly, make enough money and buy it yourself. I can't continue like this. If you're going to keep obsessing over that apartment, let's divorce.
Yeah, I get it. You and I have different values. If you just paid, there'd be no problem. We're only having this argument because you refuse to. Even if we try to talk more, we won't get anywhere. It's better for me to find myself someone new. I won't accept living anywhere other than a high-rise in the city. If you want to live in a rundown house in the countryside, let's divorce. I'll get the divorce papers tomorrow, so you better not regret this.
Following my momentum, my husband agreed to get a divorce. I went into my room. Jack is really hard-headed, so I'm sure he'll actually bring me divorce papers. I quietly packed my things. As he had said, Jack came home with the divorce papers the next day. I took the papers and started filling them out in front of him. Though he was up for the divorce yesterday, reality hit him when he saw me actually sign the papers.
Do you really plan on going through with this?
He asked me repeatedly as I continued to write.
Hey, I brought the divorce papers, but are you really going to do this over living in that apartment? We just have slightly different perspectives on the issue. Isn't getting a divorce over this a bit ridiculous? It'll be great if you give us the money to do it, but even if you don't, we can't live there immediately. I'll be patient.
I think the difference in our opinions about our ideal home is very important. Who was the one who said he should find himself someone new yesterday? You should break up with me and find your dream woman who'll buy you a luxury apartment.
But, I was just saying, I just got angry because you brought up getting a divorce. I don't make enough money, so you paying is our only option.
I don't intend on continuing to bend myself backwards to pay for your life. Our values when it comes to finances in the home we want to live in are completely different. Even if we continue being together, our relationship will just fall apart. That's why I'm filling out these divorce forms. After signing everything, I showed the papers to Jack. After you sign your portion and we submit them to the city hall, I'll leave.
Wait, you're going to leave? How will I be able to pay the rent and the bills on my own?
We aren't married anymore. I'm leaving. You should figure that out yourself. Your name is on our apartment rental contract. So it's strange that I'm the one paying for everything, right? More importantly, won't you sign the papers already? Realizing I was firm in my decision, Jack gave up and began filling out the forms. The reason his name is on the contract, even though I pay for everything, was because he wanted it that way for the sake of his pride. He thought it looked bad to not have the contract under his name when he's the husband. But that doesn't benefit him anymore. I hope he suffers because of this.
I finished. You really okay with this? When we file these, we won't be a couple anymore.
Even though he had signed everything, he still wanted me to change my mind, but my feelings wouldn't change. I don't plan on turning back now, and I'm the one who should be saying that to you. I hope you regret this. Well, we won't be meeting anymore. Bye. I collected my things and left our apartment. Jack didn't chase after me, so it was a very easy parting. I guess he didn't care about me all that much. I was refreshed. Luckily, my parents lived nearby, so I moved in with them for a while. They were surprised that I suddenly came home, but when they heard why I got divorced, they let me stay with them. I didn't plan on staying with them forever, just until I found myself a new place. Later, living alone in a $440 apartment with his $500 salary, Jack naturally couldn't afford to pay any of the bills. He had no choice but to move, and went into an incredibly tiny place with a $100 monthly rent. The building he moved in is very run down and has communal toilets and showers. He's barely getting by. The reason I know all this is because he called and messaged me later.
I was wrong. Please forgive me. I can't stand living in this rundown place any longer. The $440 apartment we lived in together was great. I was happy. Why did I do that?
He realized what kind of trouble he was in after he left our old apartment, and he sent messages full of regret. Jack should just find himself a new job, but he clearly didn't try.
You were right. Forgive me. Please don't ignore my messages. Save me. I won't say anything dumb like talking about that apartment building anymore.
My ex-husband called me many times, and when I wouldn't pick up, he'd send me text after text. But he only talked about how he was living and how he needs my money. I knew that he was just after my money, so I ignored everything he said. The divorce and his new apartment are the results of his choices. He can easily solve everything just by getting a new job. My nail salon became even more successful and my income increased, so I bought a house in the suburbs and a large dog. The house has a huge yard, so my pup is really happy. As of now, I don't plan on getting remarried. My house has an island kitchen counter and is designed exactly to my liking, so I'm very satisfied. I've always wanted to own a Labrador Retriever, but I haven't been able to because I didn't think it'd be happy living in a small apartment. So I'm glad I rejected living in that apartment building and divorced my husband. I hope to live a happy life with my dog from now on. Sophia decided to give up on her husband, who was obsessed with living in a fancy apartment building, and divorced him. I'm sure many of you are surprised that that's their reason for getting divorced. But the question of where one will spend the rest of their lives is important. Since their perspectives were so different, choosing to walk on separate paths was probably the right choice. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and comment below. See you next time. Bye.
Alright, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry." I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.